All right, everybody, what I want to do is talk about this video from this conference called Davos, and it's OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and his talk on AGI. And I'm going to combine a couple of things that he said in a previous video on AGI and the fact that it might not be able to be delivered in 2024. Words matter, and let's talk about it. Let's get the show on the road. Getting out of this tight spot, it's going to be hard. 20 minutes later, here we go. That was a tight spot. All right, so the Davos Conference is a yearly conference where world leaders, political leaders, CEOs of different companies, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, people who are really instrumental in the way the world functions, they meet. This is a conference of the elites, the who's who in pretty much every major industry meeting in Switzerland. It's the Davos Conference. So we just finished, CES, right? That's the annual conference where people talk about technology, what's coming around, what's next in the technological world, and what we can expect in 2024. And that is a huge conference. CES is a huge conference. But Davos, now this is an even bigger conference because this conference encompasses everything that impacts the world and our society. So these thought leaders, they come together and they have these conferences, they have these workshops, they have these talks, but the big deals are made in the meetings that take place in private. But anyway, that's another conversation for another day. Today, what I want to do is talk about Sam Altman and what he mentioned about AGI. And his words matter. He says that they will not be able to deliver AGI within 2024. That's something he said previously in another event. And he said that because of, it's a question that everybody's talking about. Remember the Q star? What happened with that? Remember everything that's taken place over the past couple of months at OpenAI with leadership, and transparency, things of that nature. So he made a statement before this conference that AGI won't be able to be delivered in 2024. But does that mean they don't have it? Or at least a beta version of AGI? A lot of people say that GPT-4 Turbo is a beta version of AGI. I don't think it's there yet. I think it's powerful, but it's not at the point that it can be truly defined as AGI. And that's another issue, the fact that there is no clear definition for what AGI really means, what it stands for. So in that case, they can say that GPT 3.5 was AGI, but in reality, it's not. So he said they won't be able to deliver it in 2024. And then he went on in the Davos conference, and in that video on Bloomberg Live, they show the whole entire interview. He says there's a number of factors that go into the reasoning why AGI won't be able to be delivered. And a lot of it centers around energy consumption. And you'll notice in a bunch of my videos where I talk about the limitations of artificial intelligence and why I believe it's still going to take some time before we have any real societal issues. I mean, I don't see societal issues happening in terms of, complete job losses, like job replacements taking place where people won't be able to find jobs because of AI. I don't see that happening for a very long time. And he addresses some of the issues with AGI and with AI in its current scope in terms of its capabilities, one, and also the fact that the energy consumption is something that I've mentioned multiple times here on the channel, that AI requires so much processing power, so much energy in order to deal with the prompts that are taking place on a constant basis, that they really do need to figure out fusion. And he actually mentioned that in his interview, that they need to figure out fusion in order to handle the issue of AGI on a global scale, on a mass scale. Now, in-house AGI, that's something that's more doable. He did not mention that, but he did say that AGI won't be able to be delivered in 2024. Delivery to the public is different than having it. Are they close? He said AGI is close. He mentioned that. They're working very hard on this, but there's a lot of things that need to happen in order for it to go to the public scale. And again, it all centers around the processing units that's needed in order to process all the prompts and all the requests that's going to be taking place from APIs and everything that's, happening in terms of research and development, in-house, and also from the public itself. It takes a lot of energy, just like I require a lot of energy, so I drink a lot of coffee, probably more than I should. But it's a cold, cold winter day here in New York City. It's below. It feels like it's below, like 26 degrees or something like that. So yeah, it's cold. So anyway, so we see that he's making the rounds, and this is interesting that he's at the Davos Conference. It's actually not that interesting because technological leaders, technology leaders are always there. Previously, the big topic of conversation was cryptocurrencies, the decentralized finance, DeFi, right? And also Web3. All these things were talked about in previous conferences. And notice how the conversation shifted. But this is definitely the type of conference where they talk about these game-changing technologies. Cryptocurrency was supposed to be that. It really still is. But, in terms of the currency aspect of it, it's had its ups and downs. It's roller coaster situation. But now the real focus is on AI, and everybody is talking about it. It almost became like an AI conference. You had the CEO of Microsoft there talking about how artificial intelligence is being implemented in all their devices. You had the Intel CEO there talking about how they can make AI more accurate and why that's important. It's important in fields like healthcare because obviously when you're dealing with health, you want to make sure that what's being generated by the AI itself is accurate. That matters. When you're talking about different types of industries that are critical, these are not blog posts they're putting together. These are research papers or medical findings or advancements in medical technology. All that stuff needs to be accurate. And in this type of conference, the Davos Conference, it's all about the economy. It's all about finance. It's all about the environment. It's about how the world operates and how the world can work together. Now, it's come under a lot of criticism because it is a meeting of the elite. So it is the who's who. And, sometimes conversation may not jive well with the public in terms of what's taking place there. So it's had its issues as a conference. But it's important to watch these things because you have, billionaires who are meeting in a conference having backroom deals or conversations that are taking place that's really going to impact us on a daily basis. And I can only imagine, I wish I could be a fly on the wall, hearing what everybody's saying about next generation AI, because there's what we see, right? We see the ChatGPT, we see the Gemini, we see, Claude AI, we see all these other types of artificial intelligence platforms like DALL-E. We see Midjourney, we see Stable Diffusion, we see all of this stuff. What we don't see is what's taking place behind the scenes in the laboratories, in the research and development labs. We don't know what's being worked on. And maybe we don't need to know because, it's so early on that it just doesn't make sense for us to have insight into that. But I would like to know. I really want to know what's taking place in terms of, the world of quantum mechanics and quantum theory. Where are they in quantum computers? And he mentioned that as well. Or it's been mentioned that quantum computers are going to be pivotal in terms of artificial intelligence. So everything I've mentioned in terms of, what's needed in order to make AGI a reality for the masses, that's a lot of stuff they've been talking about. And if you're into technology, a lot of this stuff just makes basic sense, right? That computers don't have limited resources. They like to say that, the difference between a human and a computer is computers don't take breaks. They don't get tired. They don't need coffee breaks. They don't need to go to sleep or anything like that. But that's not necessarily the case. They do need energy, electricity. And that is very expensive. They do need resources. They need the chipset. And they burn through those very fast. And they need to be hot swapped. A lot of the times you don't want to take down a system. So you need to make sure that it's developed in a way that you can hot swap or interchange some of these, the drives that these technologies are stored on. The wiring, the infrastructure. Yeah, it's game-changing technology. It's not just standard consumer level or consumer grade type of computers. These are data center computers that are meant to be, on 24/7, 365, and their capability of staying on without errors are supposed to be significantly higher than that of a consumer-grade electronic like what you and I use. But the reality is, at the end of the day, this technology still requires energy and resources, and is expensive. A lot of this stuff is expensive. So what I see happening, what I believe is going to happen, is the fact that you're going to have next generation AI that's going to be kept in-house, not delivered to the public because, one, it's just too expensive to deliver to the masses. Sam Altman mentioned the fact that ChatGPT has been a little bit slow lately, and it's probably because of the release of GPT Store. Actually, he did mention that that's probably why ChatGPT has been slower, because a lot of people are messing around with GPTs in terms of creating their own custom GPTs. But in order to have AGI, which will require significant more processing power than regular AI to be released to the mass public, yeah, that definitely needs a lot more energy and resources that they currently don't have. They're developing a lot of the chipsets in-house, to deal with the chip shortage issue that they've been facing. There's a race over here to try to get the next generation processing units into the hands of AI developers and researchers. But that takes time. That takes resources. That takes all the precious materials found deep in the earth that we have limited access to. And when you have all the geopolitical situations and everything that's taking place in the world today that kind of slows down a lot of this trade, that slows down the advancement. Let me get some more energy over here. But yeah, so I definitely think that, in terms of AGI, it's going to be a while. AI is getting very good. You have very good, narrowly focused artificial intelligence that's very helpful. And he mentioned that is a three-phase approach, three-phase approach in terms of AGI. But basically the fact that it's going to be more of a productivity enhancer, especially in the short term, because they're not going to, have the most advanced models running 100% of the time, because it just wouldn't be economically feasible. Unless you're an enterprise level customer willing to spend an insane amount of money on utilizing such an AI. But for the average use case, for the average business, for small businesses and medium-sized businesses, standard AI is going to be what's utilized, and it's going to be a productivity enhancer, meaning that if you get familiar with how to work with this artificial intelligence, what's currently available and what's coming down the road, because we see a lot of stuff is coming down the road. If you get to work with it and understand it and become very effective with it, you will be more efficient, you will be more productive. And that makes a world of difference in your employability. So I don't think jobs are going to be completely gone. Now, we did hear how Google laid off, a decent portion of their advertising division within the past couple of days or past week. And they replaced it with AI. So some people are saying it's happening now that AI is taking jobs. And yes, there are some jobs that it will replace. But those people are going to be able to apply to different positions, different roles within the company. And this is why I think that reskilling and upskilling is extremely important. And I want to do a separate video completely on the topic of reskilling and upskilling, because I think that is something we all need to be focused on. We got to be able to upskill what we currently know in terms of our knowledge base. Learn more, get deeper understanding of how to work with our programming languages, the interconnected technologies, and make ourselves just more valuable within the current scope of work that we do today. That way you become slower to replace. And then there's reskilling where, let's say your position completely disappears. If you're in one of those types of positions, then you got to be able to be reskilled. A lot of companies are, moving forward with reskilling options and training platforms and things of that nature. But, sometimes we got to take the responsibility ourselves and start reskilling ourselves, and, just make sure you have good resources and try to figure out what's going to be the next type of job that's going to be needed. And again, a lot of it's going to do with artificial intelligence. So if you have no understanding of how to work with AI, then yeah, now's the time to get really familiar with it. But it's very interesting to see what's taking place at the Davos Conference, what's taking place in CES. There's been a lot of coverage on that. I didn't get to do any videos in terms of CES specific type technologies that are coming out this year, but there's a lot of things that are taking place, and a lot of other channels dedicated to AI have spoken about that. But the Davos Conference really, I find extremely interesting. And these types of conferences are very important to watch, because if you want to get a sense of what's taking place in the world and what's going to take place within the next 12 months, 24 months, these are the types of conferences you got to follow. Now, again, remember, most of the information we're going to get is going to be filtered information. We're not going to get all the ins and outs of what's taking place, all the, off the record type conversations, all the deals that are being made, that you really can't track based on contracts, but you can, get a sense of who's there, who are the players, and see, where their worlds align. So definitely check out that Bloomberg Live video. I think it's definitely informative. And also the conversation, besides that one with Sam Altman, the conversation they had with the CEO of Microsoft, because that was also a very good conversation. Talked about the fact that AI is being utilized in all aspects of Microsoft in terms of Copilot. You know that it's going to be integrated in pretty much every single product they have. And it's going to change the way operating systems themselves function. And it touches on, I mentioned this before, it touches on the whole entire user interface in terms of how do we connect with our computers, because the whole entire purpose, one, of computing is to make us more productive, to make it easier for us to do the type of work that we wouldn't be able to do without computers. But there's always the user interface, there's always the latency between the human and the machine. And how do we interact with it? The input-output. We have to type on a keyboard, or we have to touch a touchscreen, or we have to, use our voice. And a lot of that stuff has worked for decades, but some of it's still not that great. And they touched on the whole entire aspect of Siri and Alexa and Cortana and some of the issues that's taken place, with these technologies in terms of the limited capabilities. So definitely check out that talk as well. But there's a whole bunch of them, in terms of the billionaire Ray Diallo, I believe it is. He spoke about a bunch of issues taking place in terms of the economy and what it means with interest rates, with inflation, with the recession, with jobs and things of that nature. So don't just listen to one of these talks that's taking place. Take a look at a couple of them, because there's going to be some, areas where they overlap or they have an alignment in the impact that it has on all of us. So take a look at them. I think they're very fascinating. Now that I'm on my way back to the office, which is my home, just finished dropping off my son to school, navigating my way through New York City traffic, which is always fun, right? It's actually not that bad of a ride. I'm gonna have fun using the AI that we currently have. That's what I've been playing around with for the past, year at this point, just looking at the differences in terms of the quality as it's gone forward. There's been advancements, with GitHub Copilot, it's improved significantly. We now have PHP Storm has its own AI code generator. And of course we have ChatGPT. Beyond that, there's a bunch of other code generators. Code Whisperer is one of them. AlphaCode 2, was demoed to have significant capabilities. But in terms of my workflows, it really just boils down to using GitHub Copilot and using ChatGPT. I really do need to start playing around with the JetBrains AI. Got to see what the capabilities of that is, because I think that can be very beneficial to get a alternate viewpoint. And I think that's something that is going to be important, that a lot of these code generators, or just a lot of these generative AIs, what they offer is a point of view. It's a pair programmer or collaborator in terms of content creation or just ideation. And just like they say, you got to get more than one source, I think that's going to end up being something that takes place here as well in terms of generative AI. A lot of people are going to say, all right, what does ChatGPT say about it? All right, now let me just go to Claude AI and see what they say about it and try to see where they align, where they overlap, and where do they differ on. And those differences are what's going to matter, because they are trained on a lot of the same data, but they're trained in different ways. The techniques are the same, but the data sets may not be as large, the processing power may differ, or the focus of the AI may differ. The algorithms used may be slightly tweaked in one way, shape, or form to favor some type of content over another. And Sam Altman mentioned it in the video in the conference at Davos, that it's not always the size of the data set that matters. Yes, these data points that they have, they're extremely large. But the reality is there's a lot of junk data in there, and that's where a lot of hallucinations take place. So now it's about getting, really good data from knowledgeable sources. A lot of that's going to have to be paid for. So it's very interesting. And I think that, using some of these AIs and to cross-check their outputs is going to be important for all of us in terms of a skill set, in terms of the patience, because it's easy just to prompt the AI to generate something for us and just, be lazy about it and just take this first result or the first answer and just run with it. But the reality is you gotta just spend a moment, take the time that you saved, and research to see how good it is. And the reason why you want to do that is because you want to have the best possible results. And that still requires our interaction. So I'm home. All right, so make sure you go check out that video. It's on Bloomberg Live. It's the OpenAI CEO, Sam Altman, at Davos. But there's a bunch of other people who participated in the conference as well. Take a look at what they have. Very interesting talks and conversations. And the Davos Conference, and the fact that it's everybody who's so important in terms of how our society functions, it's a good thing to follow. All right, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. And I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.